If you're struggling with your vitality, energy, mood, focus, or sleep, this podcast is for you. Your host, Dr. Tsung, ER doctor and aerospace flight surgeon, will help you reach for the stars and remove the barriers or blockades that have been holding you back from living your best life. If you've been challenged by your health, relationships, or productivity, then it's time for a breakthrough. So here's your host, Dr. Tsung.
Hello, welcome to It's Not Rocket Science Show, and I am your host, Dr. Tsung. Today, I have the honor of having Dr. Vikram Raya as one of our guests. He is my personal life and business coach, and he is just like an amazing person in all aspects of life, and this is why I hired him as my coach. So thank you for coming, Dr. Raya, and please, would you be able to share with us kind of who you are, introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And please call me Vic. So
thank you, Vic.
I am super pumped to be here. I've been, excited about Anne and her podcast because there's nothing like it out there. I mean, health, relationships, productivity. I mean, from astrophysics to the planet orbitals to just, productivity and flow state. You're not going to find this in too many other podcasts, guys. So, buckle up and listen in. We're going to have a fun session today.
Thank you. Thank you. And tell us a little bit about like who you are, what your story is, and what you have been involved in, because I know you had quite many endeavors in different areas.
People say, hey, what do you do? And usually I joke and say, hey, I do a lot of things. What do you do? Let's talk about that. So maybe I can connect what I'm doing to what you're doing. So I start off my life as a sort of unmotivated kid. I was sort of getting through the day. I would hide my grades from my parents and I'd stuff into my desk. And I'd do that because I'd be embarrassed and it was not the lack of intelligence I realized afterward. It was really the lack of interest. I was not interested in what was being taught in school, but something sort of clicked in sixth grade. And then I was like, you know what, to get to my goals, to get to my dreams, to have a better life for myself, I need to master this area. And so that was one of the first lessons. It's never really a matter of skill. It's usually a matter of will. So there are certain things in life where you need skill power, but really, if you have enough willpower, you can essentially achieve anything you want. And then the next sort of turning point in my life was really figuring out what I was going after, right? Goals, passions, dreams. And I thought I wanted to become a doctor. And, in our Indian culture, we have a saying, either there's three options for career choices. Either you're a doctor, you're an engineer, or you're a loser. Right? Those are your three options. And so I was like, all right, I'll be a doctor. And initially I did it because I thought that would please my parents and it would be interesting. Mm-hmm. But when I got into it, it was actually quite fascinating. I love the science. I love the aspect of helping folks. And with using your knowledge, you're able to transform someone's health. And that was fascinating for me. So I was like, all right, cool. Let me study this. And then somewhere in my medical school training or my internal medicine training, which I did at Georgetown, my father collapsed in front of me with heart issues. And I had 6 other people who had heart attacks and heart disease. And it got serious. I was like, man, this is real. And there's a statistic that I quoted. I just got honored by 2 US congressmen and this Indian American organization 2 nights ago. And in my acceptance speech, I said this statistic because I really wanted to shock people into action. And this was a statistic. The South Asian population represents 25% of the world's population, but accounts for 50% of the cardiovascular deaths in the world. And I'm like, dude, I got to do something about it, right? This is personal. And so I studied cardiology. It was tough. It was competitive. I didn't even match the first year. And it only drove me. I realized my life was never going to be easy, but it was going to be fun and it was going to be enjoyable because every time I falter, I would just double down and we'd go further, double down, go further. And so I was upset for about a day, maybe 2 days. I was like, all right, is this part for the course? Let me just, figure out more people do. Let me do more research. Let me talk to different folks. And that's another lesson in a lot of your listeners need to understand. Look, failure is not final. It's formative. It's actually part of the recipe for success. And by taking these setbacks, you set yourself up for the comeback. When I did get into cardiology and I matched and we moved out to Milwaukee, I mean, it was so joyous because I feel like I put everything on the line and I earned it, And, I've done things like in my life, like Spartan races and Tough Mudders. And it was cool when I did it. But what was really cool is when I got my two kids into it. So Veer and Arman started doing these races with me, and they're 8 and 10. And on their shirt, it says earned, not given. And, I think the kind of listeners who listen to your show and the kind of person you are and what I've done, we love earning things. We don't want anything to be given to us. It makes you appreciate things even more. So I got into cardiology. Things are great. Things are good. But I'm like, I don't want to be dependent on just one source of income. Like, what happens if, and we all read that famous book by Robert Kiyosaki, right? The Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he teaches one line in there that really, it's like, stop trading, time for money, right? And if you disconnect that time for money equation, it's really when life opens up. And that really resonated with me. The second thing was, I knew I wanted to live in an abundant way because I grew up sort of middle class or lower middle class. And, I felt like we had to always choose this or that. You can't have both, or it's always like live below your means, And I really love the concept of expand your means. Don't live below them, expand your means, right? And I always love the concept of, hey, do you want chocolate or vanilla? No, I want both. So I always say, let's have both. Think both. And the other famous thinker that I sometimes model myself after is someone who I'm sure you know very closely. It's Peter Diamandis. Mm-hmm. Who's Peter Diamandis, as you may wonder? He's the inventor of the X Prize. He's the guy who's started probably 20 different companies from human longevity to space travel to innovation prizes for education all over the world. The guy is a futurist, and he's also what we call a techno-optimist. He believes that, and he has two great books. If you haven't read them, guys, I highly recommend them to you. One is called Abundance, which was his first book. And I think he wrote it with Stephen Kotler. And the second book is called Bold. And really, technology can solve really a lot of our world's problems. And it's really private industry with this benevolent slant towards, improving the lives of people that's going to solve a lot of problems. And so that inspired me. So again, he always believes in, abundance and both. And really, we live in a created life, Anne. It's not life that's given to us. We are creating the life actively. So if we can create it however we want, why not create it in exactly the size, the flavor, the version that we want? And so, that's always inspired me. So as I was navigating cardiology, I realized that I needed to do something else. I tried options trading, which is one of the, stocks, options, they tell you is one way to generate wealth. And it may work for many people, but I found it very difficult. I didn't understand it. It was complex for me. And I fell on my face, even though I had an options coach. I had a coach. I hired someone, hey, teach me options. I still couldn't figure it out. So I was like, you know what? Someone told me this, and this advice still stuck to me. Only invest in what you know or what you can understand and explain to somebody. So I'm like, you know what? I understand real estate. It makes sense. And there's so many advantages. You have appreciation, depreciation, you have leverage, you have growth. You can do so many things with it. You can scale it very easily. And the government and banks and financial institutions want you to buy real estate. That's why they make it so easy for you. So I'm like, all right, I need to have that in my portfolio. And so I'll let you jump in with some questions. But really, what ended up happening is as I went into life becoming a heart doctor, and I ended up becoming a doctor of health, wealth, and mindset, really. And so that's what sort of how my journey has come full circle.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on the show. It's because, you've started out as a functional cardiologist, you open up Vitology, a clinic, and then you went on to have a real estate company that does apartment syndications with how many million under management?
Yeah, we've transacted upon $600 million of real estate so far. And our goal is to hit the $1 billion mark in the next couple of years. And yeah, it's been fun. And I have to credit real estate for really unlocking the doors. And many of your listeners are what we call high income professionals, knowledge workers, smart folks, but they're part of this W-2 industry. And this W-2 industry essentially sort of creates these golden handcuffs. And when you have these golden handcuffs, your life is comfortable. You get to take 2 to 3, 4 weeks of vacation a year. You get to send your kids to a reasonable school one day, and you get to retire at age 60 or 70. And you live in a subdivision and live a quiet life, and you watch Netflix 63% of the time. Great. Fantastic. I believe there's more in you. I believe there's a higher and best version in you. I believe you're meant to do something in what I call your zone of genius. And I think you're meant to make a dent in this universe. You're not, we get that phrase from Steve Jobs, right? People have so much potential and capabilities, but they play at sort of the safe level. And in fact, most people, they're dynamic in their teens, they're dynamic in their 20s. They get married. They're still somewhat dynamic in their 30s, but something happens at age 35 that people lose what we call your josh. In Hindi, it's your life, your zest. Something gets, you settle. That's something that I've always pushed myself not to do. I work harder now than I did 10 years ago, and I don't have to. And that's what I've noticed. The high performers in the world, the people who are joyous in what they do, and they're doing their zone of genius, and they're very happy and they're content and they're making progress. And by the way, progress equals happiness. And they work harder now because it's their passion. And when you blur the line between work and joy, then you're in the right field. The other thing is this: when I was a fifth grader, my social studies teacher told me there's a concept of the Renaissance man. And I was like, what is that? I forgot her name, but, and she's like, there's a concept where a man in the Renaissance ages, like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, they would be skilled at so many different things, and they would equally go between left side brain and right side brain and art and science. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I love that concept. And to this day, I'm like, you know what? I want to be a Renaissance man. And so that's really what fueled me. And so you mentioned some of the things I do. So as I sort of got dissatisfied with traditional cardiology, I was tired of the pill for an ill strategy. And I knew there's something more out there. And so I studied something called functional medicine, also known as integrated medicine. And what we wanted to do is treat the root cause of disease. I had a hypertensive patient or a diabetic patient or a cholesterol patient or a heart attack or a heart failure patient. I was like, okay, if I could go maybe a couple of months earlier or a couple of years earlier and catch these people and do certain interventions on them, lifestyle-based mostly, could I change their trajectory? That was the hypothesis. And the answer, Anne, was yes, absolutely. And so that's what I started doing. So I started coaching my patients, even while I was in a traditional cardiologist and these things. But I'm like, most of my time was spent doing all this. I'm like, why not do this full time instead of just doing this like in between like patients and in between like cases and whatever else I was doing? I was like, so I got certified. One of my mentors and people I look up to is Mark Hyman. And for those of you who don't know, he is one of the sort of godfathers of functional medicine. He practices out of the Cleveland Clinic, and he's helped make functional medicine, which was sort of a fringe science back in the day, it's become mainstream. There's a board. You can take a certification and become boarded in it. He took it to the Cleveland Clinic, one of the top health institutions in the world. And so, I started modeling his strategies, and I took a risk. And I took that risk because I had income coming in from real estate. And so Viking Capital was starting to earn money at my multifamily company. So I was like, you know what? I want to pursue my passion. And I launched this clinic in Tyson's Corner in 2017. And it's been amazing. And now we've converted to more of a virtual clinic. And we're going more toward epigenetics and human transformation and longevity and like things that you teach, flow states and things like that. And so that's where Vitalogy is doing, and it's sort of evolving. My multifamily company is growing strong. And then, during COVID, I was at a crossroads. I'd gone on a couple of podcasts. I've done something called the Leverage and Growth Summit through one of my friends, Peter Kim. And doctors all over the country were asking, hey, Vic, what are you doing? How are you doing all this? Can you show us what's going on? And people were calling me. I was spending hours on the phone talking to people. I was like, man, and they're like, can you coach me? I'm like, I don't coach people. That's not what I do. And then so this other company business idea came about because there's a need. So many physicians out there are fed up. They're tired. They want to do something different. They want to pursue their passions. They want to practice medicine the way they want. They want to break the handcuffs, or they want to earn income in other streams, so they're not dependent on just their medical income. And so, I started helping doctors, all over the country, and it's been such a joy and blessing to do that. And it fills me with so much happiness. And I sometimes pinch myself. I'm doing 3 different things that I love and I adore, and I have free time right? I've achieved what I call the 5 freedoms: time freedom, location freedom. I can work from anywhere in the world. I'm able to have financial freedom, meaning I don't necessarily have to work, but I get to work. And then this year I was able to climb Pikes Peak. I was able to, convert my body, got a 6-pack finally. I've been working on that for years. I couldn't do it. And finally I did that. And so I have this sort of vitality and energy to chase after my kiddos. And then the final thing is having this sort of bulletproof, resilient mindset, whether someone in my family may pass away, there's a strain in the relationship, a lawsuit, there is, upheaval in the economy. I want to, fortify my brain in such a way that I can handle it. And this is what I consider success. When you have all 5, I feel that's successful. And so now I'm just trying to share how to do that with everybody else I meet.
Yeah, the emotional freedom or emotional resilience and all 5 freedoms is really so important. This is the kind of what I'm trying to achieve too. And I think you unpack so many things in there, essentially like the passion and the purpose, that zest, that drive, like that's something like so important for high performance to find. And my question to you, I want to kind of do this in the format, the Simon Sinek way. You start with why. And then what are you trying to achieve? And then you do the how, the process goals. And so I want to know that now being a functional cardiologist, founder of Vitology Clinic, and then Viking Capital, the real estate apartment syndication company, and then now Limitless MD, the physician coaching company. I want to know what has been your why that's been driving you? Is it the 5 freedom or is it something else? Is there something that's one sentence that you can tell me?
I think the 5 freedoms are sort of my North Star, but my why is, I think we talked about it, like there's a term that Peter Diamandis uses called MVP, major transformative purpose. Other people call it your BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals. And people have different things in different cultures. They call it dharma, or your purpose in life, right? So you can call it whatever you want, but I realize what I love to do is when I meet someone, I want to learn about them. I get curious, insanely curious. And then my goal is to see where they are. And I just want to help them get to where I always believe people have another gear, another shift, another level. And my goal is just to see where they can go and then help close the gap. Sometimes people are like excited, like, oh, great, Vic, damn, thank you so much. They're like, hey, then there's like unsolicited, hey, dude, I didn't even ask you. Like, why are you like trying to like always push me so hard? I'm like, sorry, man, my bad. So that's, as a coach, I've started to ask this question, like, Anne, what's your superpower?
I have 5.
Tell me.
Okay. I'm an optimist. I'm a coach. I'm a time creator. I can really do anything and take any, I'm a chameleon too. So what that means, I can adjust with any situation, I can pivot. And then I am catalyst, which means that I can take action, I create time and I take action and make things happen.
Okay, guys, those of you who are listening, she just showed me her, first of all, she's well put together. She's been working on her mindset and her success because you get the way that she speaks. But here's the question that I've been asking myself, and now I'm asking other high performers: what's the dark side to some of those strengths?
Well, the dark side is
you don't have to use all of them. Just use one or two. But give me an example, and I'll share you mine afterward.
Essentially, I think being too optimistic and not thinking through the risk. If I'm always taking action, then not thinking through the risk, I could lose, but then they're all learning opportunities. That's how I view them, and I could potentially coach someone too much and always want to coach people. Like you said, like unsolicited advice. I think that's maybe the downside, and maybe perfectionist or detail oriented. Essentially, if people don't do the things on time or don't understand my instructions from my virtual assistants, then I think I get impatient, or that they don't submit things on a due date because I'm a timekeeper and creator. I get impatient.
Those are awesome. Thank you, Anne. So guys, like all of us as high performers on this podcast, as we listen, do that for yourself. Do an inventory of your 3 to 5 superpowers and figure out what's the dark side of some of these superpowers. And I guarantee you the joy you're going to get in 2021 and 2022 is really learning to mitigate some of those dark sides. And that's where the next level of your growth will be. If that's all we do on this podcast, I think that's it. Because that's something we neglect. Like, right, for every superpower, what's the kryptonite? And so I think mine is, learning not to just shiny object syndrome, right? I want to do so many things in my life. It's learning to, I think you may ask this down the road, but you know what? I'm going to give it to you right now. What's one phrase I live by? Here's the phrase, guys. Everything I touch turns to gold. You just have to touch it long enough, right? And that's the caveat. You have to touch it long enough. And it's something I remind myself. And, there's two other ones that you guys have obviously heard of. This too shall pass, and the best is yet to come, right? Always really having that slant of more of a brighter future. So those are some things that really, drive me, that have sort of formed me. And it's like consistent pouring of good stuff into your head. Eventually good stuff comes out. And I think that's what we've all done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I think that you answered, like, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Whenever you have a setback, whenever you have a challenge, then you just need to push through, it'll pass. And that eventually, good things take time and it will transform. And even if it doesn't transform to what you thought was supposed to be, it is still going to be a learning experience to help you down the line. That it would be a gift down the line that you wouldn't have imagined it to be. There's no way you could have predicted it. So that's been my experience.
Yes. And if I could stack on that, if I could reflect, I would really say, I always used to think addition was the way to greatness, but now I'm at the point where it's deletion. Deletion is the way to greatness. Getting things off your list, off your plate, off your responsibilities, and really creating that tight bubble of focus and just going monomaniacal on just the mighty few. At the beginning of your life, you don't have much opportunity. So you say yes to everything. But the second half of your life, you have to learn to say no to most things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. This company wanted to hire Richard Branson to come in and speak for them. And all right, they talked to Richard's assistant, and Richard Branson's he's not even involved. It's his assistant. So they're like, all right, so we'll pay Richard about, $300K to come speak. It'll be a half a day event. It'll be great. All our executives are really excited to hear him speak. We'll send a jet out for you. No problem. And the executive comes back and says, that's not going to work. It's not going to work with Richard's schedule. It's not. All right, no worries. We're going to pay you $500,000. Okay. He just needs to, okay, you know what? It won't need to be a half a day. It'll just be for 2 hours. He'll speak. We have executives flying from all over the world. It's going to be amazing. We're going to give you a nice, beautiful dinner, a banquet. We'll have a jet, whatever you need. And they tell Richard's assistant, he's like, no, that's not going to work. It's really, I don't think that's going to fit with his schedule. I'm like, all right, how about this date? But now it's only be an hour. We'll pay you $1 million. Whatever you need, whatever you want me to do, we'll do it. But we just need Richard Branson to speak to our company, our executive board. We're waiting for him. The assistant this time is starting to raise his voice. He's like, you don't understand. I don't care how much you're going to pay us. Richard Branson is not going to speak at your event at all. He's only focused on one main priority for this quarter, and your company is not it. And that's it. That's the focus of geniuses, right? And so that's something we got to learn. Learning to say no actually will help you say yes to the right things. It's simplification. It's slowing down. It's savoring the day-to-day moments, and it's learning to say no to the things that are to the 7s, 8s of the world, and only saying yes to 9s and 10s of your life.
And I completely concur with that, because I remember in the beginning, with all high performers, we're always saying yes because we want to do this. We want to do it. We're capable. We can do it. And then so when I first started coaching with you, I was, I think, in multiple places trying to juggle multiple things. And we really listed out top 5 priorities for the year. And that really gave me clarity, the laser focus to get into flow. You have to have focus to get into flow, really. And so the rest of the year has been a lot smoother, a lot more focused, a lot less stress, because I deleted all of the other things that I started and I didn't want to stop, but I didn't really care for that much. And really, I just had to, it's the sunk cost fallacy. When you put in so much into it, you have the intention of doing it, you just feel like you need to finish. And so, you really put it into perspective. And after deleting it, I was a lot less stressed. So Thank you. And
yeah, absolutely.
and so we talked about your why, which is your 5 freedoms as your mission, or as your North Star. And your mission is to really, it sounds like, to elevate people past their current baseline to reach their peak performance potential. And I want to know kind of like the what right now. Like, what is your goal perhaps in 10, 20 years? What is your legacy that you want to leave? Anything for your children, your family, or do you have a mission or charity that you're working on? We want to know kind of your end goals.
Yeah.
You have the MTP, but I want to get specific.
I think I have goals in multiple categories, right? Health-wise, because I always start with health, right? Without your vitality and your health, you're nothing. And it's a hollow victory. And there's a quote that I like. Someone told it to me the other day. It's like, the healthy man has 1,000 desires. The sickly man only has one, right? So it's like, you would give up all the wealth at the beginning of our life. There's a paraphrase from the Dalai Lama. He says something about like, we spent the first hour of life sacrificing our health for wealth. And then the second half of our life, we sacrifice our wealth to even get one more day of good health, right? So with that said, I think there's a lot of people who are not sick in this world. There's people who are sick and have issues. They need to get stabilized. There's a lot of people who are stable, or quote unquote, there's nothing major going on, but they're not healthy. Then there's people who are okay, but they're not at their peak. They're not the ultimate. And there's people who are truly like vibrating at such a different stratosphere than everybody else. People are like, man, how like, they're anti-aging. They're vibrating with energy. Their frequencies up here, like they are like, you can see they're like, just emitting positivity. Like, how are they doing that? Like, and if they have that many more years to live at that high quality, what more will they accomplish on this earth? That's amazing, right? That's where I want to, that's the spectrum, but I want to get to that part of the spectrum. And so that's my goal for vitality. I want to live to 130. I want to enjoy my health for as long as it's possible. And I want to compete in different things. Muay Thai, kickboxing. I want to do these races. We just signed up to do Mount Kilimanjaro next year. So I'm excited about that. That's all sorts of
Mount
things.
Kilimanjaro Summit certificate.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm chasing you, right? I got invited to do this 0G flight out of Cape Canaveral, where with the space, I think it's nearby the SpaceX launch pad. So like, these are the cool things, right? It's about experiences for me in life. And it's about I say energy is the truest currency we have. So all things being equal, the person who has more energy really can have the best of lives. And so that's my legacy for health and vitality. In terms of charity, this year we've started a Raya Family Foundation. So we've been doing charity for years. In fact, our company, Viking Capital, is built on people, planet, profit. And so we always help our communities we work in. We help like local charities. And so that's been always engaging for us. We always do ESG, environmental, sustainable, green projects on every real estate deal we do. And then finally, it's profit. Obviously, we want our investors to do well. So we've supported Girl Rising, we've done a couple of charity galas where we raise a significant amount of money for Girl Rising, where they take girls who are sort of sold into sort of this indentured servitude in India, in Africa, in parts of Southeast Asia, and they free them and put them back into schools again. So that's been awesome. We've supported a village in Bangladesh for water conservation and water projects. We've done, pregnant women in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, bring them back into the workforce after they have delivered their child. There's a lot of poverty, like, a lot of families we feed during the holidays, Thanksgiving. So these are all very cool, but just like I've started to focus my energy on just a few projects, I want to start doing that with my foundation. So this year, my wife and I and my kids, we're going to sit down and say, hey, look, what are the causes we most believe in? And instead of going wide, we're going to go a little deeper and really double down on maybe one or two main charities, and then try to take that to that next level. So that's exciting for us. We've always promised ourselves we're going to do this, but you know what? Why not now, right? There's never a good time. There's always, you just decide and act, and maybe we'll start with a smaller amount now and we'll grow that. But like, people say, oh, I'll just wait till I make a lot of money to donate to charity. Well, It's a lot harder to do $1 million out of 10 million than it is to do $1,000 out of $100,000. So just get started with whatever you have and whatever percentage you feel comfortable with and get going. And if I could speak about this again to your listeners, there's an abundance challenge I want them to take. So this is a thought experiment I want them to do. So imagine this, it's not rocket science, listeners. If you want to create abundance in your life, but you don't really feel it, and you actually want to have a genuine feeling of abundance and not scarcity, where we all sometimes live from, do this for me. Over the next 30 days, choose an amount that you feel comfortable donating, a total amount. So for example, let's just use $1,000 for the month of, October. So the month of October, divide that over 30 days and then donate that amount. So like, let's say $30 a day. So $30. So I'll donate $30 to this charity, and then this charity. Oh, I see a homeless man on the street. I'm going to give him $30. Okay, I'll stop by the food kitchen and buy $30 worth of groceries and drop it off there. Imagine sort of priming your nervous system for 30 days of giving, of generosity, without expecting anything in return. Just to at the end of that, even though it was only $1,000, which, for some people is a lot, for some people it's not that much, but it doesn't matter. It's a concept. You feel so positive. You feel so good. You get rid of this like negative scarcity energy, and you just, things start coming to you, and you just are more flow. I believe money is just energy. It's a currency. It's a velocity of money, and it circulates. And the more it circulates, the more wealthy the people who are part of that circulation become. And you become abundant in obviously your personal wealth, but you become abundant in your experiences, in your capabilities, in your contributions. And so I think that's what it's about. So I've talked about my health. I've talked about my health goals. I've talked about charity and abundance goals. And then let's talk about like my real estate. A goal is to have 23,000 units. That was our 10-year goal that was set about 2 to 3 years ago. So we're on track. We're going to keep growing our real estate empire. We have a fund we're launching. And so this is going to be a $50 or $100 million fund where we're going to buy 6 to 8 assets in that fund. And, we've done a great track record for our investors, and, we're really expanding into about 6 or 7 cities we invest in. And so that's really exciting. And we're also growing our team. And then as an entrepreneur, I just came back from Business Mastery. And one of the things I learned is stop becoming an operator and become an owner. And so one of my goals is eventually to bring in a professional C-suite team. And I've already implemented Traction, which is a book I highly recommend everyone read. It talks about the entrepreneurial operating system. And if you have a company, you may want to put that business system into your company. And so now we have that system. At some point, I want to stop being the bottleneck of my company and come out and then bring in a professional team and then be the visionary and founder and guide it up. And in my company, Vitalogy, I really want to become one of the national or international leaders in human optimization. And for me, what that means is taking people who are good and making them extraordinary, and really basing it on the chassis or the vehicle of epigenetics, and really turning off bad genes, optimizing the good genes, and using nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, strength training, mindset, flow state, supplements, cryo, infrared, all the other technologies that can stack upon that. But there's a lot of things you can do very simply that are so profound that will get you the biggest bang for the buck. And then slowly you go up this like biohacking ladder, if you will, biohacking pyramid. And so that's sort of a fun thing I'm going to do with my Vitalogy clinic. And so, and then finally, Limitless. I just want to continue to inspire and push and elevate the physicians out there so we can transform our medical system, transform, that profession, and bring back the joy. That's the buzzword. Bring back the joy, because right now physicians are burnt out. There's the physician burnout is a real thing. They're tired. They're not satisfied. They're not fulfilled. And we're losing some of our best minds to other things because the field is not providing what it promised. And so I want that to change.
That's super inspiring. And that's the reason why I wanted to hear your goals, because I feel like a lot of people think they can just 1 or 2 of those, that's their limit. But really, you see that once you have a system in place, that if you just laser focus on one thing, then move on to the next thing, you can have 4 or 5 different companies, 4 or 5 creative endeavors. Really, you have the time and the energy to pursue your passion, but you have to have a system in place. Like you said, at first, with real estate, it's like, first I do it, and then we do it. Like you have you and the whole team do it now. And now you progress to they do it, the C-suite. And, you're going to be, in the background, but everybody else kind of know your system, like the McDonald's system, and basically know what to do. And I think the one question regarding your legacy I want to ask is, on your grave, what do you want it to say? Does that make sense? Here lies Vikram Raya. He did what? Or who was he?
One of my mentors said this. He said, he asked three fundamental, powerful questions in life. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? And so if that's on my gravestone, I want ... exclamation YES, exclamation. And, one of the things I sort of, another prism or a sort of a litmus test I use in my life is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So try to live your life in such a way where it's truly like, there's no compromise. It's a hell yes. Yes, I'm doing it. I like hanging out with that person. Yes, I'm going to go hang out with them. You know what? I enjoy this, this book. I'm going to read it. You know what? Or that I'm just doing that because it's obligation. You know what? There's no need to do obligations now. At our age, at our stage in our life, we're not here to please others. We're here to impact others. We're here to elevate others, and we're here to bring joy and peace and freedom for ourselves. And so no compromises, no excuses. Hold yourself accountable, hold others accountable, but elevate and live your best life.
Yeah, like really radiate your best self every single day, because all you have is today or at this present moment. You never know when an accident is going to happen. You really never know when your life is going to end. So if you live worrying about the past, worrying about the future, you live small for the day, then you're kind of taking the precious life away yourself, if that makes sense. And I really like the abundance challenge, the charity challenge. So I'm going to try that. I have not heard of it, so I'm going to try it. Thank you. And I want to go ahead, because you're doing so many things. I want to get to the meat of like how you do it. So some actionable steps that our listeners can actually take, or some knowledge that, perhaps they can implement. And the first thing I do want to ask you is, what is your morning routine that allows you to have the energy and time to really set yourself up for the day to tackle, all these companies, and your family too.
Absolutely. So guys, there's much been said about morning routines, and I'm just going to throw out some books so everyone can read them. There is The Perfect Day Formula by Craig Ballantyne, one of my coaches. There is the book Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. There's other strategies out there. There's so many things that have been written about the morning routine. The key is, is it repeatable? Is it sustainable? Can you do it? And so you want to figure out, you got to make it your own. And so figure out, that's number one. Number two is, I don't buy into do all the 30 different things in the morning and then do the one thing that really makes sense. I really believe in something called magic time. So as soon as you wake up, brush your teeth, you get ready, use restroom, whatever you need to do, come down. What I do is I hydrate, right? So I'm doing a couple of green drinks in the morning. One of the things I highly recommend is something called Athletic Greens. It's a super supplement I take every morning, and it's very powerful. Number two is after you hydrate and you drink enough water or whatever supplements you want to take, then it's some kind of meditation of some sort, some quiet time. And, I've tried about 9 different meditation strategies, and I'll share with you some of them so you can just see what's out there. One is called Insight Timer, INSIGHT timer. It's some guided meditation. It's a timer. And it also gamifies it. So I've been tracking my meditation in that timer for since 2015. And it sort of makes you accumulate stars and points. And so what you quantify and what you gamify and you measure, you will improve upon. And so that's been huge. So having some kind of thing like that is helpful. There's something called the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani, which you can YouTube. Next is priming technique by Tony Robbins. YouTube priming technique on YouTube, and you'll get that. Another guy I like to follow is Joe Dispenza. He has a couple of guided meditations in the morning that are very powerful. If you are not into the quote unquote meditation and you want something that's essentially seamless, it's more neuroscience, you can do something called NuCalm, NuCalm, which is a neuroacoustic software that was developed for astronauts, special ops, and professional athletes. And what it does is it essentially gets you down you go from beta, alpha, theta, delta, and then eventually into gamma. So you get down to this state very quickly. You listen to binaural beats, some kind of high acoustic frequency software. You have a disc that stimulates GABA, which is a neurotransmitter on your left wrist. And on top of that, you wear an eye shade, and it's been powerful. So look into that. And then let me see any other strategies. Oh, then there's there's, again, more on the technology forefront, is a device I called the Muse, MUSE, which is essentially biofeedback while you meditate. And the interesting prism it uses is if there is chaos, if you're doing the right thing, you hear birds chirping. And if you're not, then you're hitting like rain, showers, and thunderstorms because it's a chaotic mindset, chaotic weather pattern. So it trains you to become calm. So these are some of the strategies. You can mix and match. You can try some, do what works for you. But I don't care what you do. But having mindset mastery starts with having a quiet mind, having a streamlined mind, having a rested mind, a restorative mind. So that's important. And one more thing, Wim Hof. So Wim Hof has a breathwork technique that's really powerful. You can, again, YouTube that or he has an app as well, Wim Hof app. And so sometimes I use that breathwork app. So I usually try to do a couple of things for a couple of months. And then if I get bored, I switch to something else. And then most teachers or coaches say, hey, 5 a.m. club, do some underwater basket weaving, do some interpretive dance, do some like journaling, cold shower, do all these things. And what happens is you go through your whole morning and then it's like 9 o'clock and you haven't done any work and you're stressed. And now you're running to go to work and all that. So what I've learned and implemented in the last 90 days is this. I actually do something called magic time. This is a time where it's essentially what Stephen Coulter talks about with flow state. I use a headphone that's over the ears. And the reason why I do that is it's the same thing I do every morning. And when I do it, I snap it in place. My mind gets ready for a flow state. I drink maybe some green tea of some sort. And I listen to the same song. It's an instrumental song by a group called 2 Steps from Hell, which does all this epic cinematic, background music. And I play the same track over and over. And then I get into state, and these are all the flow state triggers, which you can learn about. And then I work on one thing that I call NUI time, which is not important, but urgent. And we can do a whole thing on Eisenhower Matrix where it's like, I'll just do it for 2 quick seconds. If you imagine a 4-square quadrant, top right is not urgent, but important. Top left is urgent and important. Bottom left is urgent, but not important. Bottom right is not urgent, not important. The bottom right, you should never be doing those. You should delete them completely. They're worthless. They're not even worth your time. You have to get them off your plate. The bottom left, you want to learn to delegate, which is your urgent, but not important. You want to delegate those. The top left is urgent, important. You need to handle those. But eventually you want to learn to handle them upstream so they don't become so urgent. And then the NUI time, that's the golden hour. This is really the juice of your life. If you do things that are not urgent but important, you will literally improve the quality of your life by 200%. And so what I do in that magic time, that morning time, which for me is 5 to 6 a.m., I'm doing this NUI time, not urgent but important. These things are going to advance my life. They're going to advance my companies. They're going to advance my children. They're going to advance my own mindset or my education or my emotions or my health. And so I choose something that's really going to take me forward, and I do that in that time. Then I do my morning routine, which is, I train, I do resistance training. I do martial arts, resistance training, yoga, flexibility, some kind of physical activity. And then I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to interviews. I'm listening to Audible, my books. So I'm educating myself. I'm doing something physical. I'm elevating my mindset. It's very powerful. And prior to me doing any kind of major speaking event or engagement or something where I need to really come with my full energy, I get into state, which is I listen to certain things, certain type of music. I do incantations. I'm vocalizing. I'm jumping on my trampoline, my rebounder, and I'm just ready to go. I'm in full state, full force. So I do all of this, and then I do this before about 7:30. And at 7:30, I go down. I make a green smoothie for my children. I help make breakfast. We pack their lunches, and they're out the door. And then I start my day. The night before, I use something called a productivity planner from Intelligent Change. And in the productivity planner, I've planned out the whole week. I planned out the top 15 things that have to happen for that week. And then I've scheduled pretty much everything on the 5 days. And I've connected that with my iCal, my calendar. So I have everything scheduled. What gets scheduled gets done. If it's not on your calendar, it's a hypothesis. It's a fantasy. It's a could. It's a should, but it's not a must. So my calendar runs my day. I've given up, and what I've done is once I could afford it, I ended up getting an assistant or some type of person to help run things for me, because I want to use my time for my highest and best use. What is my zone of genius? It's not scheduling. It's doing things. It's meeting people. It's creating deals. It's creating content. It's, that's getting on podcasts, things that are important to me. So I've outsourced that whole calendaring to somebody else now. Anyway, that's a little bit of a glimpse of my day, my week.
There's so much in there. If anybody wants to take a look, dive deeper into the Eisenhower Matrix, if you go to It's Not Rocket Science Show, there is a free gift on a productivity tactics and tips. You can download it, and it has the quadrants of the Eisenhower Matrix. And I started implementing what you were saying and how you go to your top task, your NUI task. Because I have like a whole morning routine that usually takes an hour and a half as well. Now like you said, I would brush my teeth, go to the restroom, but I would take my cold shower because that's not something I look forward to. Take my cold shower, and then I would dive into that task right away. And you're right, it would by like 6 a.m. a lot of times, or like 6:30, I'm already done with that. And it's like a beautiful state that you're in. You already feel so accomplished. And the other thing I wanted to touch on is because, a lot of people, they say, well, if I'm healthy enough, what else would you work on? The next thing you will work on is your mind, is your emotional resilience. That's going to be your superpower, because if you're healthy, physically healthy, and you have this mind where you can tackle anything, when you can be focused, and you have the emotions of like a Zen monk where nothing can faze you, and, despite the challenges, I think those are all superpowers. And I think what you're talking about, the priming, the Wim Hof breathing, the meditation, or what we call mindfulness, all of those things, and then the brain training is really to prime your mind to be at an optimal brainwave state. So those are all fantastic. And you start all that in the morning, and when you finish and when your day started, you have already primed your mind with neurotransmitters from your workouts to tackle the day. And I think the next thing I want to take a look at is, because, you have like all of these things that are going on in different areas. What do you think has been the one skill that you have learned that really helped you in all these areas? Like a knowledge that you've learned, a skill or business, or I don't know, marketing, or really learning how to think or learning how to learn. What do you think your one superpower skill you learned was?
It's identifying talent, learning to build teams, and meta learning how to learn, right? Those are the three things. And also, again, this is not the PG version of it, but I'm going to it's called idea orgy. It's essentially mixing ideas from different fields together to achieve unorthodox outcomes, uncommon outcomes. And like, I take ideas from, coaching, and I put into real estate. I take from real estate and bring into my medical clinic marketing. In fact, my guy who I use for my marketing for my medical clinic, I ended up bringing into my real estate company. And that was one of the best things I've ever done. So like, this mixing of ideas and teams and strategies into different things wherever they serve has been very powerful. Also, I know how to identify talent. I know how to identify people who can help me get to my goals and who are vested in the same mission and values I am. And so then I can grow quickly. And I realized my strengths and my weaknesses. So by doing something called the DISC score, which we highly recommend everyone do, you identify what you're good at, what you like to do, and where you're going to have the biggest impact. And then you can complement that by finding people with other skill sets outside of that. And together you're a complete set. You're a complete team. And so, the reason why I think real estate's been so successful is because I found a integrator, and these are the terms you learn from EOS and Traction, is I'm a visionary and I found an integrator. And same thing, I found an executive admin assistant that's sort of been my integrator in my other companies now. And so now I know what I'm good at, and I outsource what I'm not good at to other folks. And then, but the key is you want to delegate and not abdicate. As entrepreneurs, sometimes we're like, I just want to get off my plate. I don't want to look at the bookkeeping. I'm just going to give it over. But if you just give it over and you don't check, then you may not get the results you want. So learn to delegate and elevate. Delegate and elevate, meaning you elevate them, you praise them, you check in with them, you give them corrective and iterative feedback, but then make sure they own that process, and then document the process, right? Then if they leave, you don't need to start from scratch. Then you can give that to somebody else and they can, take it over. And then learning to use remote teams, learning to use virtual teams, learning to use contractors. And the companies of the future are going to be the ones that are the most adaptable, the most flexible, the most efficient. They're going to be the ones that will succeed.
And for somebody who, say somebody who is tired of trading time for money and somebody who wants to pursue their passion, something else that they keep thinking about it, but they have a fear against it. Is there one book that you would recommend that person to start with, or one action that they would take, one resource you can point them to?
It's really them not taking action, you say?
Somebody, not taking action. They are tired of trading time for money. They're burned out. They may or may not have something that they're passionate about. So what is a resource that can really push people past their current baseline and have the drive to reach their potential? Or, sometimes it is really hard when you meet somebody, you think that there's definitely more potential, but it's either they don't see it or they don't think that they can do it.
There's an interesting book. This is probably not a common answer, but there's a book called Pivot by Jenny Blake. And I really liked it because it just talked about how to start exploring other options beyond your main career. So that's really good. Understanding, there's a book called Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki that really helps you understand the ways people can make money in this world, and understanding, where you want to be in that quadrant, which quadrant you want to be in: employee, business owner, self-employed, or specialist, or investor. So those are really two good books. And then really a book on just believing in yourself and believing what's possible. This book is an emotional roller coaster, but if you can get through it, and I especially recommend the Audible version of it, it's You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And literally you learn to armor your mind, and you understand the mind will give up a lot sooner than the body. So if you can sort of build this sort of protection and resilience around this mindset of yours, your body can push through anything, literally. And so maybe those three books would be great. And there's always oldie but goodies like Unlimited Power by good old Tony Robbins. Doesn't hurt either. But it's like, and it's also surrounding yourself with people. You want to be the dumbest person in the room. Mm-hmm. You want to be the poorest person in the room, right? You want to surround and here's I love challenging your listeners. And so here we go, guys. Take your cell phone right now and look at the last 10 texts you got. Are these the people who are going to propel you to that next level of growth? Yes or no? It's as simple as that. Oh, but it's my mom calling. Hey, okay, I get it. But look at all 10 of the last texts, and it should give you an idea. By me taking your phone, I'll know what your income level is going to be in the next 12 months because of your phone and the last 10 texts. So it's your associations, I guess what I'm trying to say, Ann. That's really it. Mm-hmm. It's the people around you who are going to propel you or are going to pull you back.
Yeah. If you surround yourself with high energy people who have goals like yours, I feel inspired to kind of aim that way. I believe that it can be achieved versus somebody who may not have done it and have doubts when they haven't done that task themselves, but is doubting your endeavors, then it's just going to pull you back. And the other thing I want to touch on, because, there are so many things that you're in, what is one thing that you have invested in that has saved you time so you can spend time with your family?
It's really learning, time. There's no such thing as time management. It's really life management, right? So learning, I've created gone to courses, I've read books, I've done things, but really figuring out a time management system. And it's really not investing money, it's investing time into creating these blocks of time. So what I've done is this. I've consistently tried to take Sunday mornings where I plan my week. The other thing that successful people do that I've tried to emulate is I put all the fun things I want in my life at the beginning of the year, and I put them all in. And then I make my life, my business and my work having to work around those joys and passions and trips and vacations and, things I want. So realizing that no matter how hard you work and how much you achieve, it's like feeding a never satisfied beast. I mean, you can work 10, 30, 40, 100 hours a week and it'll never be enough. Knowing that, put your family first and then build your business around that. The other thing I've done is learning to turn my phone off at night. So literally around 5:30, 6 o'clock, what I do is, this is something new I've done is I've actually, my children and I remind me to take my phone, put it in the drawer, turn it off, and it's not available until the next day or that evening even. So it's disconnecting from technology. On Saturdays, for example, we try to not have any technology around for at least half the day. And we're doing outdoor stuff, and it's family fun days, right? That's the priority. So it's learning to really create boundaries, because, with this virtual age we're in, this Zoom lifestyle and telecommuting, I mean, you can technically always be on. Let me just do one more thing. Let me just add one more thing. Let me just send one more email. Let me just do one more chat or send a text. You guys have to learn to turn off, because by doing less, you'll actually do more. I learned from Robin Sharma that there's twin fuels of productivity. Twin engines of productivity. One is extraordinary effort, but the other one is extraordinary rest. So really learning to become a professional rester, professional relaxation person is key to balancing and having endurance in this success game, right? I know a lot of folks are successful for 3 months or 6 months or a year, but very few people are successful for a decade. And so to be successful for a decade, you really have to have these systems dialed in tight. Your health, your nutrition, your fitness, your friendships, your trips, your vacations, your relationships with yourself, with your spiritual power, with your energy, all of that has to be tied in really tight. And I think that's a recipe for long-term success.
Yeah, I think, like you said, if it's not on your calendar, it's not going to get done. So, the time with your family, it's got to be in your calendar. Saturday is family time. Maybe even Sunday morning is me day, where I'm just a professional recovery ninja. Because what I've learned in the flow class is that you got to recover like how much you produce, just as focused, just as intentional. Because without the recovery phase, because there's a flow cycle, without that recovery phase, you can't go at it another 500%. So recovery is part of your productivity cycle. And that when we pursue all these different endeavors, doesn't mean that you just it has to be balanced. You have to pay attention to your family and your friends, or else there's no point really, because most of us are doing this so that we can have time to spend with family and friends. So if you leave it unbalanced, then you're probably not going to feel fulfilled. And I have 2 more questions for you, because I know we're near the end. Number 1, what are your thoughts in investing in coaching? Because a lot of times I do hear that people don't think that they need a coach because they can just do everything themselves. And they've always been successful, and they are successful. So why do they need a coach?
That's a good question. I always wanted to have a coach, and I was like, oh man, that's going to be tight. I don't know how to do it. So at the beginning, I didn't. I just had virtual coaches, and that's a good way to get started. We're in that age of technology where literally a man's life that he spent several generations learning, you can learn in about 3 hours by reading his book or her book, right? So really take advantage of books. And then next is you want to talk about, conferences, and you want to go in person, because there's something on immersion. You can learn something in a weekend that will take you a year to learn otherwise. And then also immersion puts you in the same geography or vicinity of high performers, hopefully, right? Because if they're similar mindset to you, they've read the same books to you, now they want to come to the conference, then you can find partnerships, you can find capital, you can find one idea that can change your life, you can find a reference, a network. So books, then conferences, and then when you're ready, then having someone in your ear, on your team, on your side, whether that's a trusted advisor, maybe that's an old teacher, that's a professional coach, that is, a specialty coach in something. If you're into marketing, maybe it's a marketing coach, whatever that is. What happens is what you're paying for or what you're investing in is you're collapsing time. They've probably done what you want to do, or they know how to do what you want to do. So you could trial and error it, which could take you 6 months to a year to 3 years, but maybe they can teach it to you in 2 weeks or a month. So what you're paying for is collapsing time. You're paying for support, right? The difference between a coach and a therapist is a therapist is sort of non-directive. You just start talking and they sort of, here, a coach is directive. He's like, no, you need to do this, or consider doing this, or, hey, let me introduce you to this person and you need to partner together. I'll give you an example. 2 of my coaching clients now are business partners, and they're about to buy a $15 million deal together. Individually, they could not have done it, but together they have similar interests, beliefs, culture, values, and now it makes sense and they're partnering and they're going to work together. And so that's something that probably would not have happened if they weren't together. And, in this, so that the coach has seen two different things in them that made it make sense. So, I myself have 7 coaches right now. Like it's because I want to up level in everything. I have a personal trainer, and I have like sort of this body transformation coach. I have a coach on just mindset. I have a coach on real estate. I have 3 coaches on real estate. And what happens is sometimes you outgrow a coach, and that's okay. And you want to go to the next coach, and the next coach. And so the only way I've been able to achieve a fraction of what I've done is through having people around me who are smarter than me and who believe in me and who push me beyond what's my own capabilities.
Yeah, like you said, you recognize talent and you built a team around you, essentially. So yes. Thank you for that. And thank you for that stepwise progression. Like if you may not be able to afford a coach right now, then the books are your coaches by the mentors.
Figure out where you want to go and just building that team to help you get there, and just reaching out to friends, family, colleagues, coaches, mentors, whatever you want, and realizing you can create anything in this world you want. It is a created life. So why not create it the way you want?
And I think that brings us to our last question. So now at the end, what is really one action that you want the listeners to take after all of this? Like give them one micro step for them to take after this, and how can they find you?
The action I want them to take is do the abundance challenge. Why? Because when you start from abundance, then the whole world opens up. Number 2 is if the highly successful people in this world don't do New Year's resolutions. What they do is they plan for a battle map for 2022, and they start the battle map in November, and they finish it by Thanksgiving. So start your battle map and really plan out your 1-year goal, but don't live on the 1-year goal. The 1-year goal is a low standard. And let me explain. A lot of people teach, hey, what's your 1-year New Year's resolution? What's your 1-year goal? No, you start with the 1-year goal, but break it down to 90-day goals. And then if you want to be a bonus, you want to go for bonus points, even go back to what does have to happen each month to eventually hit that 12-month goal, right? The more milestones and checkpoints you have, the more likely you'll hit it. So if you really want to make 2022 different than 2021, if you want to triple and quadruple your productivity, start creating your battle plan right now for the 2022 victory, and milestone it out, and maybe stick to 3 things. Your mighty 3. That way you don't get overwhelmed, distracted, shiny objects, all that goes away. And also, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, I have imposter syndrome. Let me tell the listeners this. Good. Because if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're not thinking big enough. Okay. And I'd love for people to get in touch with me if they want to. I have my website, vikramraya.com. That's VIKRAMRAYA.com. I have, if you want to connect me on LinkedIn, it's linkwithvik.com. That's LINKWITHVIK.com. You can DM me on LinkedIn there. And my real estate website's vikingmultifamily.com. So all one word. Okay. So thank you so much, Anne. I really enjoyed this podcast. Man, you are an excellent host, and I love the questions you asked. You really dug deep, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I know your time is valuable, and there were so many nuggets and action steps. And this is really your experience that all the knowledge you have accumulated through your whole life. And I'm grateful that you were able to share that with us, in just 1 hour, all the best things. And we'll of course have all the links, the books, the transcripts, and the show notes, and all of your links to your website. And also, of course, Limitless MD website, if anybody ever wants coaching by Vik. And so again, thank you. It has really been an honor. And I know that I think we're going to create really awesome projects and goals together for 2022, just as you being my coach. So thank you.
Awesome, man. You keep soaring. You're doing so amazing things. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next year.
All right. Thank you. And remember, guys, everything we need is already within us now. So please go to itsnotrocketscienceshow.com for all the transcripts, show notes, and the links. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review in iTunes we'll win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a private VIP day for a health and life makeover with Dr. Tsung herself. Then be sure to head on over to itsnotrocketscienceshow.com and pick up your free gift from Dr. Tsung. Then join us on the next episode.